Let's chat about the new Star Wars figure reveals from today's Hasbro Pulse Star Wars Fanstream.
Villa Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it.
Hello there. Thanks for visiting Villa Varykino. I'm Kristy.
And I'm Matt. The first Hasbro Pulse Star Wars Fanstream for 2025 was held this morning, 5 AM local time for us here in New Zealand. There was a total of 7 new product reveals, but there's some very interesting talking points about some of these items, so we're very keen to have a bit of a chat and go over all the details.
They did mention very early on that they didn't have quite as many reveals in store for us with this particular live stream as usual. They did note that they do have a lot more to show coming up soon. They especially mentioned Star Wars Celebration, and they said that they'll do some more frequently. So I'm hoping that it won't be too much longer before we find out some more reveals, because there was only 7 in this live stream.
The live stream was hosted by a crew of 4 Hasbro team members that we've all met before. Hope and Jing from marketing, and Chris and Emily from design. They got the ball rolling with a quick chat about the HasLab Ghost, noting that it should have shipped out to all fans. We know that this impressive vehicle has been shipped out in waves. We received ours a couple of days ago here in New Zealand.
As many of you may have seen online, they showed the large box for the Ghost. If you've got this in person, you know just how big it is. And we can't wait to be opening ours in the next couple of days. Just got to find the display space for this impressive vehicle.
Following that, they moved on to talk about the upcoming HasLab, the Tatooine Cantina, noting that they've been starting to get the first plastic parts from the factories for this, including the first production samples of Cantina figures. We had our first in-hand look of the 5 figures: Wuha, Greedo, the 2 Tonica sisters, and Labor Needs.
It was really nice to see in-hand production samples of the 5 figures that will be included in this set. The sculpting and all of the stuff looks really cool. Of course, these are just production samples, and they did note that the silver finish for Labor Needs was going to be a little bit different in the final sample. They noted it was a bit glossy in the version that they had on hand.
In terms of new products, we've got a total of 7 product items to discuss. They started with 4 from the Vintage Collection. They followed on with a couple from the Black Series, and also talked about a TVC Troop Builder Pack. Beginning with the Vintage Collection, first up we had both Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. 2 key characters from the Ahsoka live action series, of course. Baylan Skoll is VC 355, Shin Hati is 356. We've seen both of these characters in a Black Series, of course, and we knew that these were coming down the pipeline for the Vintage Collection. Very nice to see them actually in hand.
The particular details that the Hasbro team pointed out for these 2 figures were the really unique antiquing for the chest plate of Baylan Skoll, and the flexibility of the lower plastic skirt section for Shin Hati. They showed a few poses to show the split at the side, so she's got some really good flexibility with the poses. And I really like the fact that they showed a promotional image of the 2 figures standing side by side, so you could really see the scale of these 2 figures, because of course a lot of fans are going to want to put them on display together. And they also mentioned about the orange tone for their lightsabers. Of course, they are not true red, so really liking the fact that they pointed that out.
Yeah, speaking of the lightsabers, both of these figures come with 2 hilts, one of them with a lightsaber blade and one of them that is a unlit saber that will clip onto their belt. Yes, and then that notion of the respective heights is actually quite important, because we know with the Black Series there was a little bit of controversy because the height discrepancy between the 2 of them wasn't perhaps as accurate as we see on screen, but we do seem to have a better representation of their relative heights in the TVC line. The face sculpts on both of these are very nice. Baylan Skoll has some very nice colour tones through both his beard and his head here. Shin Hati has a separately sculpted headpiece as she did on the Black Series. It seems to render just a little bit more tidily in this smaller scale.
I really like the backing card promotional images that they used for both of these figures. I am such a fan of Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. I get the feeling these are going to be figures that I'm going to buy 2 of each, one to keep carded as a pair and a pair to open as well. Really excited. We're finally getting these crucial characters in the Vintage Collection 3.75-inch line. The Hasbro team had 2 more separately carded figures to reveal. The first one was also from the Ahsoka show, but this time the figure was from the World Between Worlds vision or flashback scenes, the Mandalorian Super Commando.
VC353 shown on a very nice cardback with a custom composite image representing the character. Now this is a live action version of the Mandalorian Super Commando. Vintage Collection fans will know that both the Mandalorian Super Commando Captain and the Mandalorian Super Commando have been released as Clone Wars versions, live action representations of those animated characters. We had the Mandalorian Super Commando Captain as VC-246 and the Mandalorian Super Commando as VC-243. Curiously, that previously released Super Commando Captain seems to be the character with the red armor and the horns on his helmet, and the Super Commando regular trooper does not come with horns on his helmet. The newly released Super Commando appears to be a very similar character design to the previously released Super Commando Captain. A little bit confusing, a little bit of a mouthful there. In fact, when we compare them side by side, it almost looks like we've got some reused components here. There's some very similar wrinkling seen on the legs in particular, for instance, between both the Mandalorian Super Commando Captain Clone Wars version and this new Ahsoka Mandalorian Super Commando.
As we do own both of the previously released Clone Wars Mandalorian Super Commando figures, VC-243 and VC-246, we'll be really keen to do an in-hand comparison when this new Ahsoka live-action version figure is finally released.
The next figure revealed and to discuss is actually a refresh, the 501st Legion Clone Trooper on an Obi-Wan Kenobi card. This one was previously released as VC-240. It is now being called VC-240RF, RF for refresh.
This is such an important figure and one that a lot of fans really want to army build, but of course the earlier version, the original VC-240, was actually on a Clone Wars card, and I wasn't a particular fan of the artwork used on that one. I felt like it was a little bit obscured and a little bit misaligned, and of course the issues with the figure itself. The helmet is removable. It fits on over a sculpted head, which makes the helmet quite large in proportion to the rest of the body. This new figure looks much more improved in terms of the scale, and with that Obi-Wan Kenobi series card back, the image for that one is so much better. I think that that's going to be really important for mint-on card collectors as well as for army builders as well. You really want to have those clone troopers looking much more proportioned if you're going to buy multiples of them.
Now, we have seen a few new clone troopers recently with new body sculpts. This new version of the 501st Clone Trooper, yes, as you say, the proportions do look a lot more balanced. It's a much nicer looking figure overall. That head and that helmet in particular were a little bit of a concern with the earlier release. They did not demonstrate or mention that this new figure has a removable helmet. So at this point, we're going to have to wait and see before we can confirm whether or not there is a head underneath this helmet. Either way, the proportions do appear a whole lot better on this new figure.
All up, 4 really nice figures for the Vintage Collection line to look forward to. Of course, the refresh for the 501st Legion Clone Trooper will be fantastic news for fans of Clone Troopers and army builders, but the two that I am especially excited about are Baylan, Skoll and Shin Hati. I'm not especially fond of Hasbro releasing important characters for the Black Series and then leaving the Vintage Collection line hanging for so long, so I'm really glad we're finally getting these guys in the 3.75-inch line as well.
So those 4 Vintage Collection figures are listed as being available through Hasbro Pulse and mainline retailers. Pre-orders will be up on Hasbro Pulse from January the 23rd, i.e. tomorrow.
Next up, the live stream moved on to the Black Series 6-inch line, and there's a bit of a theme here as well. Like we had 3 figures from the Ahsoka live-action series for the Vintage Collection, the 2 figures revealed for the Black Series are also from the Ahsoka live-action series. This time they are characters featured in the World Between Worlds vision or flashback scenes.
Starting up, we have Anakin Skywalker in his Clone Wars armor, listed as number 17 from the Ahsoka subline of the Black Series. This version of Anakin comes with soft goods, and he also has one accessory, a lightsaber with a removable blade, so that he can attach his lightsaber hilt to his belt.
I really like the use of soft goods, especially for flowing Jedi robes. Interesting that Hasbro is doing soft goods for the upper section of the tunic as well, so that is around the chest and tucked into his shoulder armor. I really like the way that that's going to give a really good cohesive look to the whole outfit, and I was especially impressed with the digital face printing on this one. It's a really nice likeness, of course, to Anakin Skywalker performer Hayden Christensen. Hayden's return to the role of Anakin for the Ahsoka live-action series was not exactly a secret, but it was so important and a real sort of momentous occasion for fans of the prequel films. I'm so excited to finally have this sort of commemorative figure in the Black Series line.
Joining that Anakin Skywalker in his Clone Wars armor figure is clone Captain Rex, listed as number 16 from the Ahsoka subline of the Black Series. This version of Captain Rex comes with his Phase 1 armor and helmet. He is produced with a new clone body. He also has a PVC skirt and a removable helmet, not a swappable helmet.
Captain Rex is such a fan favorite character, and especially if you're fans of the Clone Wars series or just the Clone Wars era in general, I have really fond memories of Captain Rex as that very original action figure that kind of kicked off and launched the Clone Wars action figure series that came out during the release of that original Clone Wars kickoff movie all of those years ago. I think it's really fun to see him from this flashback scene being added into the Black Series line, especially since Captain Rex is such a popular character. He always sells well, so I'm glad to see that they're giving us another chance to add Captain Rex to our collections.
I quite like it when characters are released alongside other relevant characters, so we have both Anakin and Captain Rex here together, so if you're able to buy them at the same time, you have an immediate little sort of scene already started. The sculpts on both of these figures look very, very tidy. Captain Rex comes with two of his immediately recognizable blasters. That PVC skirt is a very nice sculpt for this character as well. Very nice and thin. It looks very, very tidy, very closely applied to his body, but it looks like it shouldn't hinder his articulation too much.
Just like the pairing of Baylan, Skoll and Shin Hati in the Vintage Collection line, this pairing of Anakin and Rex in the Black Series line is an instant buy. They are an iconic team. They look fantastic. I hope we don't have to wait too long to get these in hand.
As with those Vintage Collection figures, both of these Black Series figures are listed as being available through Hasbro Pulse and mainline retailers. Pre-orders will be up on Hasbro Pulse from January the 23rd as well. Next, we jumped back to the Vintage Collection to talk about a new Troop Builder box, the Battle Droids Troop Builder, containing 4 Battle Droids.
This Army Builder box of 4 figures features the Phantom Menace era battle droids with that lighter tan coloring, which is perfect for doing those big Battle of Naboo scenes. There are 3 standard battle droids and 1 with the yellow OOM command markings. Each one has a removable backpack and antenna, so you can swap between those. And there are 6 battle droid blasters, so you can have 2 with 2 blasters if you really want them there as well. This is really funny to see because I was literally talking about this the other day, that I really wanted the iconic original battle droids in an Army Builder box.
Yes, we have quite a few battle droids on display in the Episode 1 section of our collection. And as fans of Episode 1 and battle droids will know, we've had quite a few different versions of sculpts of battle droids since the very beginning, since those first Episode 1 releases, but many of them have suffered with problems in their legs in terms of being able to stand up over time. So it is interesting to hear about these versions having retooled legs. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out in terms of their stability over time. They do look a little bit thicker and stronger than the more recent versions of the battle droids, but of course the very first releases, those Episode 1 era releases of battle droids, did have quite strong looking legs, but they tended to sag and bend over time. This Troop Builder box of battle droids will be available as a pre-order on Hasbro Pulse from January the 23rd. It was also mentioned that they will be available from Disney stores at a later date.
As international fans, we can actually order from the US Disney store, but international shipping, as you can imagine, is quite expensive. It does note Disney stores, plural, so we are really hoping that this particular item will be available from our local New Zealand Disney store, where the shipping is often free. So fingers crossed for international fans that this one will have a much better distribution compared to earlier Troop Builder boxes, which can be very hard to find, especially for us here in New Zealand. They are often not stocked at all.
This is a Troop Builder set we very much want to get our hands on. We already know exactly where it's going to go in terms of displaying them all. So that was the list of products revealed today, 7 products in total. There were no pipeline reveals mentioned, there were no roleplay items, helmets or lightsabers, but they did emphasize that they will be releasing live streams with a more frequent cadence, so we may be hearing about that sort of product release within a month or so.
And I'm sure they're holding back on a few announcements to really blow us away with their panel and announcements at Star Wars Celebration in April.
So thanks for hanging out with us today as we chatted about the most recent reveals in the Hasbro Pulse January 2025 Fanstream.
We hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you enjoy hanging out for a chat about Star Wars figures, we recently shared our top 25 TVC wishlist figures for March Madness. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Star Wars collectibles playlist. This is the way.